to Charmed Life, a radio show discussing spirituality, magic, and the unconditional love of the universe. Thanks for tuning in. And I'm your host, Tricia Carr. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm very excited for the amazing special guest that I have today. We connected here actually at the Universal Broadcasting Network, where we are broadcasting live in Hollywood, California. She is a world-renowned, I should say, psychic medium and a spiritual teacher. She's known for being on a few different podcasts, and including Calling Out, which is Susan Pinsky's podcast. I highly recommend it. Susan Pinsky, you may know the last name. If you don't know Susan's name, she is the wife of Dr. Drew, who's Dr. Drew Pinsky. And I'm sure they're both equally famous in their own right. But Calling Out is a show that welcomes all kinds of psychics and mediums. And my guest has been on her show many times reading celebrities. She's also been called a very gifted medium, the wonderful Lisa Williams medium. And I'm going to just go ahead and bring her in. She is my special guest, and her name is Calise Simone. Welcome, Calise.
Me on the show.
Thanks for coming on today. We had a bit of technical difficulties getting on today, so if you're watching live, we do apologize for being late, but we're going to get you a good dose of Calise either way. And by the way, I would like to say that you can watch us live on Facebook or on ubnradio.com to find us on Facebook. That is facebook.com/Tricia Carr Charm or ubnradio.com channel 1. And you can also just find it by following me on any of my social media outlets. You can find the live stream. You can watch the archives on youtube.com/Tricia Carr and find Charmed Life with Tricia Carr on any way that you get your podcast. iHeart, iTunes, Spreaker, Stitcher. We hope that you will join us live sometime so you can call in 323-524-2599. And we are taking calls today with the amazing Calise Simone. So I hope you guys will call in. We can give you a mini reading, or we can give you some advice from Spirit. And so, Calise, I'm excited to connect with you today. We connected in the green room of UBN about a month ago, was it?
Yeah, it was probably about 5 or 6 weeks ago now. It's hard to keep track. I've been in a couple of different countries since then.
Oh, yes, you're traveling.
Yeah, we managed to make it work and set up the show, so I really appreciate that.
Oh, me too. Well, I believe we have perfect timing. So welcome whoever is listening and had to join us at about 15 minutes past our normal broadcast hour. We waited for you. We were waiting for you guys.
We wanted to make sure everyone could make it.
That's right. We just wanted to make sure we weren't late for you or early for you. So, Calise, please, let's get into it. Let's talk about, if you don't mind sharing with everyone, your journey and the work that you're doing.
Of course, yeah. So I've been working as a psychic medium for many years now. Private readings, gallery events, shows, you name it, I've been doing it. And I actually started doing this work unknowingly when I was a child. Yes. I started, as with everyone that does this work, you don't even realize you're doing it. You think it's normal, and that's just kind of how life works.
Yes.
When I was about 4 or 5, I think my earliest memories were of seeing spirits around my bed while I was sleeping, just, seeing dead people and thinking that it was just a normal thing, that everyone has those experiences. And it kind of came and went for a while. I still have trouble going to sleep. I'm still afraid of the dark to an extent.
Oh no.
But, for the majority of my life, I didn't believe. I thought that when you die, and there's no afterlife. And, I was very, very skeptic of the work, which I see a lot in people when they come to me for readings, and I don't blame them. I completely understand where they're coming from. I completely get it. Right. And so for many years, I was not in this industry, not doing this work. And a couple of events happened in my life. I started meditating. I started opening up to spirit. I started experiencing synchronicities. I started having a lot of prophetic dreams, and I went back to the work. And it had opened up at that point in my life to such an extent that I had to learn how to switch it off.
Oh, wow.
So,
had you had it switched off for a while between youth and reopening? Was it switched off a bit?
It wasn't, that's a good question. It wasn't actually switched off, but it was disregarded. Mm-hmm. And when you disregard it and you ignore spirit, it never goes away, but the significance of it can be discounted.
Right.
So I would still experience things happening for a reason. I could still see auras. But for example, I would see auras and I would say, oh, that's me needing glasses. Or I would have dreams about things that would happen to my friends before they would happen. And I'd just say, oh, that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
You know, that's kind of fun. That's like a fun, nifty thing that I can do. It's, you know, but I didn't actually realize the magnitude of what was around me. When I moved to the US, when I moved to New York, and I started working a really high pressure job, I needed to meditate just to calm down from that, to be able to sleep at night. And that's when things really, really got very intense. And I started to see spirit stronger than ever before. I felt spirit around me 24/7. I would have trouble getting on public transport. I would just know things about people next to me. You know that feeling when so you'd be able to relate to this, when you get a message for someone that's very profound and you feel like it's important to them and you need to give it to them, but it's not the most appropriate context.
Yes.
So,
absolutely.
You know, like it's someone you've never met sitting next to you on the subway and you feel you need to give them this really important message and you just can't because it's not appropriate. And, you know, things like that would happen. And it was getting in the way of my everyday life.
Right.
So that's when I started to look into intuitive development, psychic development. I wanted to know how to switch it off so I could just get on with it.
And
so
usually
I could keep living my skeptical life.
Usually we're working with people who are like, how do I turn it on?
Yeah. How do I get more? And I'm like, no, how do I get rid of this?
How do I turn it down?
I don't like this. Yeah. How do I go back to my grounded path of not acknowledging the amazing side of life, you know?
The magic.
So funny.
Could I have less magic, please? Thank you.
Yeah. Can you just please make this a bit more great and boring? This is like way too whimsical right now. And that was pretty much like the first 20 years of my life. So once I got over that and I started to realize how awesome this world was, not even, I lie. So other students that were in the class started coming to me for readings, and then their friends wanted readings and their families wanted readings. And then eventually I was like, oh, okay, fine. I'll just do this as a job because this is something which is taking up quite a bit of my time. I really enjoy it. And, you know, at that point I was like, okay, there's something to this. This is what I need to be doing. And other things, without going into too much detail, I'll just say like other things were happening in my life that were drawing me to this path, that were pulling me away from other paths. And it just made sense. So I just kind of went with it. At no point did I wake up and say, I want to be a medium. I want to be a psychic. I want to do this work. That was never a conscious decision. It was never like a choice.
Right.
But I love it and I'm really glad it happened. So here I am.
That's amazing. So you do one-on-one sessions still, and as well as you're doing a lot of, are you doing one-on-one still actually?
Yeah, I am doing one-on-ones. I've actually got a couple straight after this.
Okay. We won't keep you too long.
No rush, but just to let you know, I teach and I travel around a lot doing classes and workshops. I really enjoy doing that. It's an amazing energy that can be created in a room when you've got a lot of people doing the work together.
Yes.
So teaching mainly in New York, Colorado, and Australia, but other places too. I'm going off to Salem for Halloween to do some fun spooky stuff up there.
Oh, love it.
Next week.
I have another friend I think is doing that as well, as she was talking about doing it.
Oh, really? Oh, okay. I'll try and keep in touch and see if we can connect.
Oh, you guys would love each other. She's been on my show several times. She's amazing. I'll check with her, see if she's doing that. But yeah, that was a plan that she had when I saw her last.
Very cool.
And I love that. I actually played Elizabeth Proctor in The Crucible in high school. And, yeah, and was very, very much like I was channeling some of the stuff there. You know what I mean? Like I was like, yeah, this feels familiar.
It is. It's funny being up there, you know, and being around people who practice spirituality in different ways. So, you know, being a spiritualist, which I consider myself to be, is not the be all and end all of having spirituality. Different religions still believe in the afterlife, especially like, for example, in Buddhist culture, in Japanese culture, it's a huge belief system that we do live on after we cross.
Absolutely.
And, you know, it's just so interesting to see how many different belief systems have those commonalities and practices.
Could you explain to the audience spiritualism? And now, would you call it a belief system, or would you call it a religion? And I've never actually spoken with anyone on this show about spiritualism. And about, yeah.
Okay, that's a really good question. So there is a spiritualist church. There's a spiritualist church, I believe it's called the NSAC or something like that. I'm not a reverend of the spiritualist church at this time in my life, so I can't actually be too specific about what they do. I think it's the National Spiritualist Association of Churches or something like that. All around the world, I believe it started in the UK, and that I would say is the religious side of it. If you wanted to get into a more structured practice, and it's very beautiful. It's very much about the divine and the universe, and they do have services on the weekends where practicing mediums demonstrate the continuity of life after death. And so they call it a demonstration, and it's actually someone standing in front of the crowd demonstrating the evidential side of mediumship, which is very cool.
Yes, it is.
Now for me, being a spiritualist is not so much about the religious side. As I said, I'm not very good with religion and that kind of belief systems. I do like being at the spiritualist church services. I really enjoy that, but I don't see it as a religion for me as such. It's more an understanding and a way of life, to the point where I see this more as a science than as a religion, because I believe that mediumship and intuition and ESP and telepathy and all of that is is an element of physics that we haven't quite proven yet, that we haven't quite been able to discover and put out there as mainstream, and we will.
We will. So close.
It's all just the movement of electromagnetic energy. It's different frequencies, and there's a lot of stories of, even Alexander writes about it in The Proof of Heaven, how he was medically brain dead but still having experiences, still receiving impressions, still very conscious in a different vibration. So it just kind of shows you that there's an element of science that doesn't quite cover everything at this point, but I believe it will. So for me, the most exciting and interesting element of this work is the scientific parts that are starting to be uncovered just from my own personal experience.
I completely
So I'm not
agree.
going to say I'm a scientist.
No, I know.
I'm not.
I'm the
but
same.
I love science.
Take a lot of inspiration from it, right? Yes.
Yeah. And, when I can sit here and say, I've had a dream 1 week ago and everything is happening today exactly as in that dream, for example, like I want to know how to explain that with science. Or when I can telepathically send a message to the person next to me, or they can send it to me, just with mind to mind. And we do this on one of the podcasts I'm on Third Eye Mind. We did telepathy on the show. So
you did? Amazing.
Yeah.
I love that.
And to be able to do that, like, that there's some kind of electromagnetic energy going back and forth. We just need to be able to prove it.
Absolutely. And I'm not, again, like you, a scientist, but they are getting closer. In my study and teaching of telepathy, I talk about a quantum physics principle called quantum entanglement. And this is when two particles that are in different locations will behave as though they are exactly the same particle.
Oh, that's awesome.
Isn't it? And so to me, this is exactly like us sharing brainwave signals, and communicating messages along that channel, along that frequency. And so I see in a lot of, in quantum physics, we're really getting a lot closer. Quantum physics also, you've probably heard of this study where they measured the brainwaves of Tibetan monks meditating. Have you heard this study?
A little bit, but continue on.
Sure. I think it was in 2004. Yeah, it was. I think they did it in 2004, 2006. I'm not sure. And they took a group of Tibetan monks who were obviously quite advanced in meditation, and then they took another control group of novice meditators. And what they had the novice meditators do was meditate for 1 hour a day for 2 weeks. So, just a kind of just beginning, but starting to have a bit of a practice, probably being able to quiet down that mind chatter a bit. That's just where they've started to get to the point of. they measured their brain waves and found that both the novice and the Tibetan advanced meditators could reach levels of much higher frequency brain waves, which when they approach the gamma brainwave frequency, this is like so far the fastest known or measurable brainwave, and that they are actually start to synchronize and connect with the extrapolation is unity consciousness. So their brain waves and the way that they're just measuring start to really synchronize. And so again, like they assume that this is basically like tapping into a universal consciousness. Unity.
And this is just the beginning. It's just the beginning of discovering all of these ideas. They also apparently did a study where they measured the strength of I believe it was that I don't remember the exact study, but I know that they tested the strength of telepathy at the equator versus the strength of telepathy closer to the poles. And they found that telepathy was strongest at the equator. So there have been theories that said that the magnetic energy of the North Pole and the South Pole interfere with the ability of thoughts to be sent from one person to another.
Whoa, that's
which
interesting.
Proves that or hopefully infers that there is a transfer of electromagnetic energy going on during that process. And the other really nerdy thing that I love to talk about is Joseph Buchanan, who did all the experiments with psychometry, which was basically to do with psychic and intuitive stuff, which I know we're going to talk about in a minute. But he did experiments where he would take letters that were written by people at times of strong emotion. So maybe someone that had lost their son in the war, and he took that letter, and then he would get one of his students or one of his test subjects and get them to lie down and relax, and he'd place the letter on their forehead. And the idea is that one of the centers of receiving is your third eye, which is just on your forehead. And he would say to them, what emotions do you feel before, during, and after? And the test subject would be able to describe and communicate the emotions in the letter that as the different letters were placed on their forehead.
That's amazing. And were these individuals practiced or, in psychic work, just regular people? And this is, and you've probably heard Edgar Cayce, the, most famous, I don't know, how do we even describe Edgar Cayce?
A very well-known medium.
Yes, and brought forth so much work. He's passed now. This is a person from last century. But he discovered his ability when he was very young. He was kind of not doing well in school, and so he just told his father, well, just give me a minute, and he went and he lay on his school books and then essentially memorized them, not completely, not identically.
Every kid's dream.
Right. I just go ahead and sleep on them, and then I know everything, and then I can go outside and play.
Right. I often wondered if part of the reason I did really well towards the end of school was because of my psychic abilities.
Oh, right.
Because I could recall information that I had read. Not always, but sometimes I could read something once, not read it again for like 2 weeks. And then I'd read the question. I'd be like, okay, I need to know the answer. And 10 minutes later, boom, it just comes through. Right. All the information, every single piece, word for word,
right.
Like as if someone's talking to me, like spirit does. So I often wonder if there's a connection between the academic results I got and that ability, but I don't want to compromise the grades I got. So I don't want to talk about that too much in case someone takes away my student.
But oh my gosh, that reminds me.
I did win a lot of academic awards. So
it counts, though.
Okay, let's just keep those.
But it counts. Just think about it. If we called someone, if we said that this genius person has an eidetic memory, it's the same thing. So every now and again, maybe you read it or whatever. You know what I mean? Like you were still recalling it. It still counts. You didn't write it on your hand. But isn't it funny that we're still in the place that would be considered like somehow cheating or not really doing the work? It's not. I think it still counts. You didn't do any of the things they're cheating.
Yeah.
At
the end of the day, I got the result. I wasn't cheating. It just happened. But who knows? Who knows where it comes from or why?
It's the talent that you have. Let's say if you just naturally understood the language of math and you didn't actually have it, you were better than your teacher. You know what I mean? Like it still counts. My husband.
Maybe you were channeling Albert Einstein on the day of your test.
Right? I know. And that's what I
really. Maybe not, didn't he fail math?
I know he
failed something and then became like a genius, but anyway.
Exactly. And he would, what is the language that he would use? He would say, he would essentially go into meditation to be able to bring forth the wisdom. He didn't call it meditation, but he did call it, the language he used was different. He didn't say meditation, but he would go into that space and basically just get the information that he needed, like E equals MC squared. Like he just went into meditation and was given that. And I think at some point he even said that he was working with a group of, or some kind of collective intellect that I'm totally paraphrasing and maybe even conflating his work with someone else's experience. Oh, Tesla also. Tesla does that. Maybe who I'm conflating it with. I do know that Einstein did actually go into a meditative state, even though he didn't use that language.
Yeah, it makes sense because the profound level of the discoveries that these guys are making requires you to think outside the box, which requires you to be in a state of channel because you're drawing information from a vibration where it doesn't currently exist. You're not so much processing how things happened, you're theorizing or predicting how things will happen.
Right. Well, let's talk about, oh, sorry, I was going to tell a quick story that was kind of like you cheating in high school. Or I know, I'm teasing.
I'm going to get a letter from the Premier of New South Wales saying, can you please send back your excellence award? We have reason to believe you did not qualify.
I'm sure
I did the work.
I'm sure they're listening too. No, what I was going to say is some friends and I, we did this escape room. Are you familiar with these?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So, there's all these different.
Don't tell me you guessed your way out.
I actually.
Sorry, spoiler alert. I'll let you tell the story.
No, that's it, basically. Well, not all the way out. There was just one locked. There was one door that was locked with a combination lock. And I felt into it clairsentiently and then just put it in position and opened it. Clairsentience is one of my primary clairs, and that means basically I felt into it and I just was like doot 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 and opened it, and I was like, hey you guys, and they were 2 puzzles away from getting to that lock, and my husband's like, what, how did you do that? I was like, I just guessed it. Or I didn't say I guessed it, I was like, I just felt it.
Yeah.
And he's like,
and it is. Yeah. Like you feel like you're guessing, but you know that you're not. You know it's coming from somewhere because you just know what's right. Like you just know the right answer.
And I know the difference. I felt it. You know what I mean? Like I know I use it regularly, but there's like a person that's like overseeing it, like the person who with the room, and they're like watching you and making sure, I don't know, they're just kind of the guide, but they're not really supposed to help you. And she came over and she was shaking her head and she locked it up, and we were like, what? And yeah, and one of the players, one of our friends said, is it because we didn't figure out the other puzzles first? And she like, yeah. And so afterward, I was like, why couldn't we have that? And she said, because you guys didn't do it that way. So it's considered guessing. That's why I stumbled on guessing. And I was like, well, first of all, guessing counts. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
second of all,
if you get it right, then it counts.
Yeah. And there were other things that we did that we didn't
actually. If you guessed lottery numbers, you'd still win.
Right? You still get the money.
It's not like they're going to be like, oh, you guessed it. You didn't logically deduce what the lottery number's going to be. So you're out. No money for you.
None of these were your mother's birthday, so you don't get the money, Right. And so she was like, well, that's considered guessing. But we didn't do all of the other puzzles in exactly the right way. She was like, she even said, did you guys see how that pattern happened? We're like, no, we just like went into that one, little cubby and found the thing we're supposed to find. She's like, oh, yeah, that happens sometimes. I was like, but I did mine psychically. That counts. And
I wonder how long it would take a group of psychics to break out of an escape room.
I know.
Probably not very long.
So much noise. So much noise going on, though. You have to really concentrate. And she goes, well, then what are the numbers? Would you? And I was like, I didn't get it clairvoyantly. I got it clairsentiently. And she's like, what? And I'm like, never mind. So I couldn't win. Anyway, so let's get back to the serious topic. Actually, I need to let everyone know again. We are taking calls 323-524-2599. We do have a caller. Would you like to take a call, Calise, before we get into our topic? Okay, great.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's see. Hello. I think you're on the air. Hello. Hi, you're live. Who's this? Well, I guess they can't hear us. Not work.
Oh, okay. I can't hear them.
Hello, you're on the air. I could hear the channel open up. All right, then. Well, we'll try again in a minute.
Okay.
Go ahead and call back again. It looks like we have a few callers. Do we have a few callers? Well, let's get into our topic first, because that spirit must be blocking.
Yeah, maybe they want us to finish what we were saying.
Right. Well, we wanted to talk today about intuition and psychic abilities. And I guess basically, what is the framework of this? The difference and the similarities, how do they work one with the other? I think a lot of people probably think of them as one and the same. And then, of course, we have, as we do, we cycle through things. And, there is a culture, and there is there's always culture and language that surrounds anything that we're going through together. So at the point where we are, there's probably a certain set of people who are spiritual seekers who are falling into disrepair or disdain with the word psychic, I would say. They don't really like the word psychic.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Have you experienced that yourself?
Yeah, and then I just kind of say to them, well, I don't know, go somewhere else. Like it's a word. I feel, sorry, I'm very practical about these things.
Yeah.
It's the kind of thing where I feel like a lot of people don't like the word clairvoyant. They don't like the word psychic because they associate it with like scam artists and gypsies and all that kind of culture.
Right. And it's quite an older
culture. That's, it's a whole other religion.
Sure.
But I think some people don't take it as seriously or don't think it can be taken as seriously.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of the day, it's the same thing,
Well, the word psych, just the root psych, it's in psychology and it's in psychiatry, and it just means non-physical, really.
Right.
Spirit, it means spirit, really.
Yeah. I mean, I'm still going to do the same work, whether it's called psychic, clairvoyant, or intuitive work.
Mm-hmm.
But I do try to explain that there's slight differences between the words and what they mean.
I agree. Well, let's talk about that. What are the slight differences between the word psychic, or between psychic abilities and intuition and intuitive kind of functioning?
Yeah. Well, basically, from my experience, the word intuition generally is used by people to refer to your gut feeling, which you could say is your clairsentience, just that feeling, that, or claircognizance, that inner knowing when you just know something has to be right. And clairvoyance refers to your ability to see clearly, to see the future. So those words break down little pieces of one big sphere, which you could sort of say is psychic ability. Animals have an intuition. Could you say animals are psychic? Sure. Just because they're not sitting there with a crystal ball giving you a reading doesn't mean they don't have psychic abilities. But animals know when to run to higher ground. Biologically speaking, we are animals, so we have an intuition. Animals don't tell each other not to follow their intuition. So it's weird that we tell each other not to follow our intuition.
They get so, I'm an animal communicator, so they're very confused by, even they have a lot of experience with this, they just don't understand why we do things the way we do them. They ask me that all the time. They're like, why is my human doing this?
Yeah. And we don't either, we don't even know why we do these things,
right,
just because we think they're right or not right and so on. So we all have intuition. Now, what you could say is that when you're doing, and there's so much debate about this, but when you're psychically working, some people believe they work with spirit guides. Some people believe they just pick up impressions. You could say that, like, there's not really a clear difference here, but you could say that psychic is when your spirit guide tells you something about the past, present, future. And you could say that intuition is when you just perceive it from your higher self. It's very gray as to where those lines are drawn and who's actually giving you information and at what point you're feeling something. I'm not so fussed as to where the info is coming from. If you get it, share it.
I agree. I'm the same way. Sometimes I do see guides, or, whether it's the client's or it's my own. And sometimes it just feels like it's happening in my body and I'm just seeing images clairvoyantly, but I don't necessarily connect it with a particular personality. And it doesn't really matter to me. Sometimes it is easier to connect it to a personality. And obviously, I think that I give them permission to work with us in a way that they can tap into what's easier for us to receive the information, Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Or I am. I say they. I'm including my higher self in the they.
Yeah. And I wonder, and I'd have to ask someone who doesn't work as a medium what their perspective is on this. Because when I do read, I kind of let it all come through. A lot of the time I don't just do one or just do the other. But it is what you said, where, once you start introducing spirit, it can be a lot easier because you just go into a state of channel and you just talk. But really you're channeling the spirit and the spirit's talking through you, especially when your voice starts to change, your face starts to change, your mannerisms start to change. But when you're doing just purely psychic work, it is a different vibration. It is slightly lighter. The messages can come a lot quicker. And you tend to be in more of a conscious state when it's happening.
Right. And so when you do mediumship, like someone says specifically, I want to connect with my past loved one, do you always always or primarily kind of have the personality there with you, the spirit, the being, or is it sometimes then you switch at some point and it's just the information is coming, like in the intuitive kind of coming, or claircognizance, where you don't necessarily see the being in your clairvoyance or feel their presence, and it's more just like the information? How does that work for you?
For me, I establish the connection, so I wait for them to step forward.
Yes.
I wait till I can feel them. Once I can feel them, and sometimes it's straight away they're there. Generally, if they say, if the person hasn't come through in a reading and we want to connect, then I'll say to them, okay, who is it you wanted to connect to? Often as soon as they mention the person or they say their first, sometimes I let them say the first name, but no more than that. Then straight away I feel an energy, and I describe that to the recipient. Would you recognize this? This is what's coming through. He looks like he was about 5'8". He looks like he's got dark hair. He looks like he's Caucasian. He looks like he was in his 20s when he passed, and if they start saying yes, then I know I've got the right spirit. And, if they say, oh, I'm not really sure about that, then I'll keep going and working with the energy, but maybe I've got their other brother that's in spirit, or a friend instead of the brother. And I'll just let spirit move through. Now, as I'm giving the message, spirit comes and goes. They're not always there 100% of the time. It takes so much energy for a spirit to connect, to make a projection, to lower their vibration to our level so that they can connect to us. So for them to stay compressed at that heavy, heavy frequency for long periods of time is difficult. So you will find with a spirit connection, it ebbs and flows. They come in, they come out. You get messages, you see them, feel them, you don't feel them. You hear them, you don't hear them. And, and so it's not like being on the phone. And this is the hardest thing to explain to people. It's not like being on the phone where you can just be like, so how was your day? What are you up to now? So like it's not clear all the time. You're getting pieces and you've got to just put those pieces together to try and get those messages as quickly as you can before the spirit has to just let go for a minute. Think of it like putting yourself underwater. You can only do it for short bursts at a time, and then you've got to come up for air. So that's kind of how it is for them.
And then, so sometimes, and then I feel that when they've gone, and I'm like, I know the person is, the spirit can't anymore. And then after that, it just does sort of switch to counseling and intuitive guidance. And then it's like their guides are present and bringing information through. That's how the switch feels to me, as I feel the spirit having to rescend. Is it, or do you just kind of end it if the being is gone?
Generally, okay. So you can, what I find, which might help you, if you try this out, and it doesn't always work, but sometimes I find if I don't pull them in and I just let them come and go, the connection lasts longer. So if I let them come and go as much as they need,
and then come back a bit. Yeah, I see what you mean. So then they will
then
come a bit.
I can stretch it out and I can keep them for the length of time I need them. But what can happen, which is I think what you're referring to as well, is they can switch out. So brother might go, mom might come through. Yeah. And when mom's here, then I know brother's still there. He's still in the background.
It's like he's recharging. He's recharging a bit or something.
Yeah. And at that point, it is like what you said. So then the next spirit starts talking, and then we move on to the next topic. And your spirit guides or your gatekeepers will dictate that process based on what's required at that point in the conversation.
Right.
Yeah.
I do a lot of counseling with mine too. So I think that sometimes the mediumship session will be done and the spirits have, moved back and, I can feel that they're gone. And then we'll just be talking about their life and what these things meant and bringing through intuitive guidance and counseling kind of situation. But then sometimes it'll be like, 20 minutes we've been doing that. And they're like, so wait, I wanted to ask my mom this too. And it's like, well, we'll try.
Right. Right.
But we might have to just go for it ourselves,
Yeah, exactly. Sometimes spirits are very pushy and sticky and they will stay past the end of the reading. And so at the end of the reading, if I feel their energy is still very strong, I do ask the spirit to go with the client onto the next part of their day. And that's always quite cool, because then I do feel the energy disconnect from me and go towards the client. And the client will often experience visitations, dreams, things like that, because that spirit's around them very closely for the next 24 hours or so.
Right. Now,
special.
So wait, let's get back to intuition and how they work together. That's one thing we wanted to connect for folks. So we talk about how the psychic abilities that might be when, say, our guides are literally just telling us something, or we're reading with our clairvoyance, our third eye. Intuition is the feeling. For me, intuition is like being very connected to the field. And that's when we have the synchronicities and the precognition, because it is always being really connected in flow, the way that we're supposed to be. So I always say it's really just the evidences are kind of just a byproduct of actually being completely natural. It's funny.
Being very present. You won't hear your intuition if you're not present.
Right, because that's the only place that it is now. And because now is the only thing that is actually true. Anything that is non-present is illusion. Anything that is non-present is not love, is not God or, source energy. Yeah, because source energy is everything. We all are. The end of that sentence are.
So the advantage of being present and being in the moment, and look, it's important to have goals to work towards, and it's important to plan, because if you don't plan, things don't get done, and if you're not working towards something, then you're not going anywhere. However, throughout that process, being present in the moment of every opportunity that's available to you in that moment, and working with what you have in the now, rather than waiting for something to come along that hasn't come yet. So working with what you have rather than waiting for the right moment, because now is the right moment, you will get more done.
Yes. Now is, that is the only moment.
Exactly. Like when we met, if I had said, oh, no, I don't want to hang out with Tricia, I want to go and, wait for Oprah to call me and be on Oprah's show. Or if you had said, I don't want Calise on my show, I'm going to wait for Oprah to come through these doors and get on my show, then we'd have never been able to connect.
That's true.
And there's all these people that we won't be able to reach, and, we won't be able to have the conversation and have the fun moments. So it's very much about just embracing the now and what is, because that's how new things are created.
And as I said, we are not in nature. We are nature. We were talking about animals, and we are animals, but somehow we do things that are unnatural for our, us as animals. And if we look at, I always use this metaphor. We look at a seed that is bursting forth with just non-physical information is actually what cracks open that seed, and then it's forming itself as it goes through the soil. And if it hits an impediment like a rock or a dense piece of the soil, the rest of the cooperative components of the ecosystem rush to it, bring it nutrients, and then it becomes strong enough to move through that. And that's what being in the now is. If I'm, instead of waiting for Oprah, I'm meant to be working with
Beyonce.
Beyonce. Hey, right?
You wouldn't have a show.
Have a show.
It just would take so long to, well, who knows?
Right. But
because you don't know.
But in the moment, you are being supported. You are receiving the information that you need and the sustenance that you need from the ecosystem, because this is an ecosystem. The universe is an ecosystem, and everything benefits from the good of one, because there is only one. There's only singularity. And so in the now, we know that we're receiving exactly what we need to. And as you say, work with what's there. That's the truth.
And so for all these people that are on a path where they're waiting for the right moment to start their new venture or whatever, just start doing what you can do in that moment, and just experience what happens.
Mm-hmm. Because that's saying yes. That is the vibration that's saying yes.
Yeah, if you're getting an intuitive pull or a push to do something, start doing it.
Right.
Start doing it, because if you haven't got that resource you're waiting for, it means you don't need it.
I like that.
So if you're standing at the bottom of a beautiful mountain in Sedona and you're waiting for someone to, oh gosh, I hope I don't get in trouble for saying this. If you're waiting for someone to bring you all the safety gear to climb the mountain, see where I'm going with this, before you start walking up the trail, it probably means that if you really want to just go for it, just take it easy and go for it. But you probably don't need all these like poles and special shoes, and just go on a slow, careful walk and just go as far as you can up that path until you can't go any further. And then you'll probably find poles and safety equipment when you need it.
Right.
Like, that's kind of the way the universe brings us resources, is you just go as far as you can with that moment. And then next piece comes along, then you can go a little bit further.
Jarvis, do we have a call? Oh, okay. Maybe we should get back to that. Would you like to take a call, Calise?
Yeah,
but that's beautiful. I love that metaphor. And I love Sedona. Hello, you're on the air. Who's this? Oh, we're having issues with the phone lines. Oh no, I'm so sorry, callers. Shall we try another one? Just see if it's their connection.
Hello.
Oh, hello.
Oh, hey.
Welcome. And who is this?
Hi. My name's
Dana?
Sarah.
Okay. I
Oh,
wasn't sure if I was me or not.
Oh, we've got two people on. It's a gallery reading.
People on.
We'll just go with it. Okay, we have two of us on the line. So who I hear? Tell me your names.
I'm Dana.
Hi, Dana.
Hi, how are you guys?
Oh, okay. So we eliminated the other call. So Dana, it's just you, me, and Calise.
Oh, okay. How are you guys?
Good. Nice to speak to you, Dana. Thanks for calling in.
Thank you. Thank you for taking my call. So I was just going to, I've always wanted to just kind of see if you guys could like lean in and maybe see if I have any messages or anybody that wants to connect with me. I'm kind of going through a big transition period in my life right now, and I'm just kind of curious if there's any, messages or guides that are want to give me some messages, and maybe hoping you can help me with that.
All right. Sounds lovely.
Yeah.
Calise, do you want to give that a crack first?
Yeah, sure. I'll just, Dana, a couple of things. Am I correct that this transition that you're doing is to do with work or study at the moment?
Yes.
Okay, because the reason I say that is because
Definitely.
I keep seeing pieces around, like lots of papers, and I feel like I've got a resume and I feel like I've got certificates, and that's why I felt like there could be a job change or an upgrade of study. You do need to do this. I feel like I have a motherly energy telling me that, but I also see a man around you as well.
I'm laughing. I have to interrupt. I have mother written down as well.
Oh,
Go ahead. Sorry. Yes.
do you have a lot of people in the spirit world, Dana? Don't tell me who they are, but would you understand why I've got lots of people with you?
Yes.
Okay, because I do. And in terms of the
Okay,
motherly
great.
energy, yeah, I don't know if this is actually your mother. Oh, it could unless you had a grandmother that was very close in age, like a young grandmother. There's a mother figure in the spirit world who's pushing to get through, and she's just so loving. She's very well dressed. There's problems with eyesight before she passed, so she may have had cataracts or needed strong glasses. Does this make sense to you?
Yeah, it could definitely be a grandmother.
Okay. Would you understand that she's on your mother's side or like a mother to you before she passed?
I'm sorry, say that again?
That this woman with the eyesight issue, that she's also having trouble speaking as well, because I feel like I can't move my tongue. So I don't know if she had a stroke or something that impeded her ability to talk properly. But I feel as though she's on your mother's side.
Definitely had cataracts and eyesight issues, but at the end, she, I think, had some, I don't know if it was Alzheimer's, but definitely, some mental issues, and it was having a hard time.
Like with talking, right?
Yeah, but I wasn't around when before she passed, because I live in California and she actually lived back in Michigan. So I really wasn't around at the end there. So I don't know.
That's all right. If you ever find out,
case.
that's just something you could check out. I definitely feel I have her energy here, though, and that she's the one who's saying that you should move forward with this transition. She's talking about exams and upgrading your skills, upskilling. So if you have an opportunity to upskill, I'd say do that first. But what I'm being told is that the new year brings about a new energy, which is the easiest time to cross. So if you're trying to cross a bridge and get to a new job or a new career or make a big move, the new year is the best time to do it for you.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
All right. So,
I know you might not want to wait
the
that long.
new year?
Just make sure you're ready by the new year. You can start looking now and start the upskilling and, you know, start that whole process. But I feel like in terms of the actual timing of the easiest time for you to do this, the new year is when the energy is going to flow very quickly for you.
Okay. Great. Yeah, I don't know about going back to school and all that. I've spent so much time doing different things in school that at this point I'm not sure about going back to school, but I'm just trying to figure out where I'm supposed to be headed. I just don't I don't know why I'm just so conflicted about it.
Psychology with you, Dana. So you may end up in a position where you're mentoring people, counseling people, or using that kind of energy. There will be an opportunity for you to upskill. You don't have to do it, but I feel it will be helpful to you during this time if you're able to bring that in. Tricia, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, that's all right. Well, I as Calise was saying, mentoring, I got managerial kinds of duties. So that is probably that similar energy. And also that the upskilling, it doesn't have to be going back to school and it being a really big undertaking in order to, it could be small things, it can be researching, and it feels like actually in the area where you are, and I know you're moving away from it and it's quite uncomfortable, but where you are, there still is some gold for you to take possession of, and it feels like there is a relationship that's very uncomfortable with the previous / current work situation. Is this accurate? There's a particular relationship that is really kind of sticking in your craw in a way.
Well, it's kind of funny. It's not real. So I take care of kids, and I've just had 2 little boys that I've been taking care of, and they just had the youngest one's 5 months, the oldest one's 2.5, and he's got some delays in his development and whatnot. So he needs to be socialized, and I totally get that. But I got kind of sideswiped when, they told me less than 2 weeks ago that they're putting them both in daycare, and the oldest in preschool / daycare. So I kind of lost them both. And I'm like, whoa, okay.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Had no idea that was going to happen.
Right.
I guess there's some weird feelings there, but I also want the best for them too,
Sure.
I'm being told you needed to be put on this path, and I feel that what you were doing in your current job created an energy of lacking in self-love. Now, I don't know if it's because you were looking after these boys 24/7 and not looking after yourself, that you're putting them first, which is obviously, like a very lovely thing to do in some ways, but your own self-care was starting to fall away. And I feel that Spirit needs you to prioritize that as you're put on this new path and this new part of your journey. Again, there's this certificate around you. I can't change it, but you don't have to worry about it. Just if it comes up, know that it's part of the journey, okay? But I do, yes, that managerial word does come back in, like Tricia said. I do feel you'll be put into a position where you're going to be making more money in the next role, because I have like gold coins, stacks of gold coins around you.
Gold, right? I saw gold as well. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And you'll need to be some sort of boss or manager. Either you're managing a business within a business, or you're like there's something.
I kind of want to go into business for myself.
You'll still be working for some kind of agency or some kind of corporate structure, because I don't see you being fully independent next year. I still feel there's an application process and someone's giving you work.
I see that as well. Yes, I saw, or even perhaps going to a company that I see the structure as well, but it's actually quite a comfort for you.
Yeah,
to be able to do that.
Successful.
Yeah. So maybe it is something that is more like with an agency, because then you'll have some freedom and some entrepreneurial type of expression and control, but at the same time, relishing the fact that there is a system. Well, thank you so much for calling in, Dana. I hope that is helpful. And that mother energy, she wants to connect with you.
Leave that with you. Thanks,
Dana. Okay, great.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. We don't have very much time left. Do you think we have time for a call? Jarvis thinks we do, Calise. Would you like to take one more?
Of course. Yeah, let's do one more.
Wonderful.
No, it's going to go so quick.
Hi, you're on the air.
Hello.
Who's this? Hello.
Hi, my name's Sarah.
Hi, Sarah. Is that with an H at the end or no?
It is with an H at the end.
All right. Wonderful. Thank you so much for calling. We have Calise Simone on with us.
Hey,
Hi,
Sarah.
thank you. I'm super excited.
Thank you. What's going on with you today?
But I just was kind of wondering, I've been going on a different path. I've been taking crystal healing, and I'm kind of thinking of pursuing shamanism and doing investigations and stuff like that. I was just kind of wondering about that.
Oh, okay.
Okay. All right. I'm hearing that you're going to have to be open to various paths with this. So I feel like, yes, spirituality is bringing you in, but not necessarily in the path that you may be walking down at the moment. I almost feel like I want to pull you back and just see, this is psychic now, this is a mediumship, because this is intuitive. I feel like I want to just grab you and pull you back and say, wait a minute, start with cards, start with tarot, start with intuitive, start with psychic, and then work your way more towards healing modalities, because I feel you're very empathetic, but I feel that you're still transitioning yourself with your own energy, healing your own. You've been through a lot of relationship troubles, correct?
Yes, I have.
Yeah, it's almost like I want to give you space to let those wounds heal before I throw you back into the hospital where you could be exposed to more diseases. Healing work energetically doesn't really work like that, but it can. And I just feel that you're going to come to it with a lot more strength once you've seen the full capacity of your abilities. And I feel concerned about you jumping into a structured form of spiritualism before you have seen it all. Does that make sense?
Yes, yeah, that does make sense.
That is wonderful.
Because that's kind of been my whole journey. I've kind of always been like the truth seeker, always searching and looking for what fits me best. And I am very empathic, so it is hard to have like normal jobs and things like that, picking up on everyone's energies.
That I have to say, I think that Calise's advice is being empathic, you are an empath, you're highly sensitive as well. You're sort of on the cusp of lower medium empath and highly sensitive, which is a good thing, by the way. So sometimes you do pick up other people's emotions as though they are their own, but it is a lot about how your body is absorbing the energy. So having those strong boundaries, and the first thing I wrote down for you was body work, which to me means sometimes that's Reiki, but I feel that this is actually the kind of work for you to receive. And being an empath myself, I know that going into structured modalities and learning them that way can actually block us, because we feel the instructor's way of presenting it. We feel the system so clearly that we think that it is our own system, but we have our own special fingerprint to develop for ourselves. So we actually block ourselves in this sort of mimicking the instructor and or the modality, when we're supposed to be just receiving the information, let it wash over us, and then knowing our own native land and how we actually expand from our own genuine gift, our own unique gift. So that makes sense, like just in your own space, like Calise's, and perhaps getting some of that body work yourself. Were you actually thinking of Reiki as well? Like learning Reiki?
I have, yes. That's kind of, that has been coming up a lot, like medical and alternative healing. And I have been thinking about Reiki, and I've been getting that a lot lately. Like I have power in my hands and in my third eye. And so it is just a lot of synchronicity. Like today, I just happen to feel like, I just need to call. It's something that I need to do. And just listening to you guys talk, just so many synchronicities of what I've been experiencing.
So as an empath, we actually need to develop our modalities natively before we start taking on other modalities. This is my experience, so I don't want to say it is the end-all be-all for everyone, but I want to share.
No, but it's true.
Yes. And
I studied with many, many, many different mediums before I decided what part of it made sense to me. And you never stop learning.
Of course, right. And so I like Calise's suggestion of working with cards on your own, because this is you pulling out your own energy and feeling it for yourself and seeing how you work as a practitioner, as a healer, before getting into someone else's energy about it. I agree with that. That feels right.
The only other thing that I want to add, Sarah, is maybe read up on or check out Therapeutic Touch. They teach it at quite a few hospitals in Canada. So it's a nice connection between energy work and healing work. And it's not it's not overly structured in that you'll lose yourself in it, or that you potentially might shut down something that's still coming up to be created within you. So, either that or Reiki, or maybe do a bit of everything and just see how you grow with a bit of each modality.
That's awesome, because that's really like how I am. I've kind of just taken little bits and pieces from everywhere. So that's really awesome to get that confirmation.
Great. Well, it sounds like you're working right. And it's an exciting time. It's a very exciting time to be able to just keep doing that. Oh, we are out of time. So let's say thank you to to Sarah and Dana, our previous caller, for calling in. And Sarah, please do call back another time and let us know how it's going. You're highly gifted, and just work with that own unique light that you have right now, I think.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thanks, Sarah. Bye.
Thank you.
Well, Calise, please let everyone know how they can get in touch with you and your work and everything that you're up to.
Yeah. So if you want to read more about me or connect for a reading, any of that, you can go to my website. It's CaliseSimone.com, CaliseSimone.com. You can find me on Facebook at Calise Simone. Twitter, Instagram, it's the same, at Calise Simone. If you want to ever come to my classes, I teach every month in New York City. We do psychic development meditation. The next place I'll be is Salem, Massachusetts over Halloween. I'll be doing little mini readings there. So just get in touch with me on social media or via my website if you want any further information. And that's it.
Wonderful. If
you want to listen to the podcast, then that's on my website as well.
And tell the name of that podcast again, please.
Third Eye Mind.
Third Eye Mind. Oh, I can't wait.
Like the band.
Yes.
But not.
But not.
It's a lot of fun, and it's one that we produced on our own, me and two of my friends, because we just wanted to make something with no rules, where we could just talk about whatever we wanted to talk about using whatever words we wanted.
How fun. Yeah, that sounds so fun.
It's a bit rebellious. Yeah.
I love it. Well, thank you again, Calise Simone, for joining us. What a wonderful show this was. I really appreciate you, and I would love to have you on another time if you would be open to it.
Of course. Thanks for having me on the show, Tricia.
My pleasure, and pleasure is entirely mine. And thank you, everyone, for listening this week. We will be back again live next week at 11 a.m. Pacific on ubnradio.com or at any of my social media handles at Tricia Carr Charm. Thanks for tuning in. I love you, whoever you are.